he said, come round to Newbridge, I'll introduce you to four guys. And I was amazed. There was four guys on stage, Christy Moore, Liam O'Flynn, and Andy Irvine, and Donald Lunny. And I couldn't believe what was happening. I said to Tom, you know what this is? I says, what? I said, these are the Beatles of Irish folk music. Something's going to happen here. And they became Planksty. Mm-hmm. And so that was, the dropout year dropped us into Ireland. It was great. The money was okay too. But in those days, 98% tax doesn't make sense, does it?
No.
And George wrote Taxman to celebrate the tax situation. And yet we were very, very rich young men, even paying 98% in tax. So the dropout year was a kind of a protest, really, against why would a government want to take 98 pennies and give 2 pennies back to you? It didn't make sense. Mind you, we were all broke by then, and although we looked rich, there'd been a lot of thievery and a lot of chicanery and a lot of we weren't looking at the money. And so we had to put our lives together a bit. When the famous thing of John Lennon saying, I'm down to my last £20,000, it was a Liverpool joke, maybe, but it wasn't really a joke. We didn't know where the money went. But the thing is, you can't lose your writer's share. And so thank goodness for peer music, Southern music, all those years ago, helping create the world of publishing. Because most of us survived through our songwriting.
I have a feeling right now music has kind of lost its kind of rise of consciousness, because there's nothing really in music anymore. At least music from back in the day had a meaning, a certain sense of something, and it made people do certain things, caused protests, and made people look at their own lives. Do you have a feeling also that that's kind of been lost in music now?
People have said that where's the commitment, where's the revolution, where's the new direction, which obviously was everywhere in 1964 and 5, but the circumstances were different. I look at the period that I entered music as a young teenager more like it was a revolution, because it was in direct contrast to an establishment. That establishment looks like it has disappeared, and there's nothing for a young artist or a young person to rebel against. It almost looks like that, but really there is an establishment still. There are songs to write, but the circumstances are different. Imagine it was like the Renaissance, where the Renaissance in Italy and France and England, up, the 1500s. Before that, there was a very restricted, controlled, violently controlled way of looking at the world. Before 1964, after the Second World War, there was an incredible amount of control and conditioning from the state and from the church. Some of it was needed because there'd been 2 world wars and a depression, and it almost was the end of everything with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So when we came along, we songwriters were part of millions of young people that were born after the Second World War and during the Second World War, with a feeling of, can we change it? Can this be changed? Is this the end? So we don't have those circumstances now. And yet there are nuclear warheads standing by all over the place. And why has the sense of disaster been taken away? Some people speak of it being like George Harrison's last album, which was called Brainwashed, that after we broke through in the 60s, television was a very important new tool for propaganda. And we used it for good, I think. And radio DJs like you guys used it for good, communications. But then it became clear, not even before the 60s even, that governments could use communications and television and advertising and movies to brainwash people into a false sense of security. And maybe this is what young people are feeling now, that where is the place to rebel? Where is the revolution? But there is a beat cafe, there is a bohemian world, and it usually is in a university town. And it's usually in a university bookshop, or if there are young people that are asking questions. But how do you actually break the brainwash? And what we are doing, David Lynch, Linda, myself, Paul McCartney, Ringo, recently, when we did that concert in New York, was to say the only way you can break the brainwash is to become more aware, and the only way you can become aware is to become self-aware, and the only way you can become aware of yourself is to go inside. And the only way to go inside is not through powerful drugs, but through meditation. So TM, Transcendental Meditation, is a tool 45 years later, only 45 years later, when we brought it, Beatles and I brought it to the attention of the world. It's only been 45 years, and the effects have been proven again and again and again, that if it's in schools, we might not be too late to have generations grow up in the next 20 years that are more self-aware. The internet has been very helpful. It has been extraordinarily helpful, because John Lennon would talk about buying a satellite in 1966 so that positive and self-aware tools could be promoted. But the satellites, and we know what satellites, they're only one message picked up by one aerial, as it were. So that's a one-on-one. But the internet is completely open. And now the internet is more like telepathy. You could actually think something and put it on a laptop, and it can be picked up thousands of miles away instantly. Now that's almost like telepathy, but the problem with internet is it's a one-on-one, again one-on-one, one person and one picking it up. But you can't say that it's a bad thing. And although all our music is being downloaded free, it's not a bad thing. The internet is an extraordinary tool. But where is the revolution, and why is there no commitment? It's possibly that the brainwash that George Harrison called his album has been quite successful in giving a false sense of security. The people still have to have their say. They have to speak. It looks very interesting where we are. Those that grew up in my generation speak of the age of Aquarius. Have you heard about what the ages are? Well, the ages, there's 12 of them, and they go round in a circle backwards through the chart, through the astrological cycle. And the astrological cycle starts with Aries and ends with Pisces. But the ages last 2,100 to 2,300 years. Nobody's quite sure how many years. These ages have an influence on the period. And when you look back and go in reverse, the last age was the age of Pisces. And that was the fish in Christianity. Well, going backwards, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. So when you go backwards from Pisces, you enter the age of Aquarius. And that's what we're experiencing now. So those that want to look deeper have to think, what is Aquarius? What is going to be the influence of Aquarius? And we're right at the beginning, so things are very difficult. But the end of Pisces and the beginning of Aquarius was the 1960s, they say. And so you can't repeat the beginning of an age, but we are now experiencing what that beginning has opened up, and it's called the Doors of Perception. The rock band The Doors called themselves The Doors from a book called The Doors of Perception, Heaven and Hell, written by Aldous Huxley. And he spoke of the inner world and the experience of mescaline and how reality is seen in special different ways by different cultures. And therefore the new age of Aquarius is the symbol of Aquarius is 2 or 3 wavy lines. Now those 2 or 3 wavy lines in the old days people thought was water moving, because there is a figure, and it's a man with a vase, and he's pouring water out. It looks like water, but it's actually 3 wavy lines. The wavy lines have been described as maybe they're moving into the jar, and they're also moving out of the jar. And it's into a river, and maybe the river is water. Or could the wavy lines, they speak now of, be representative of communications? The wavy lines are radio, then TV, and now internet. And the communication that the world is now being wired. And so the age of Aquarius in the song was, this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, harmony and understanding. Now, Aquarius, when you study the sign, that speaks of understanding, but it can't come too soon for us. We want it now, but it may take a while. If the planet survives the extraordinary expansion of industrialization and now technical, and we're all looking to China to see whether they could actually become the one that cleans the planet, because maybe the practicality of the Chinese will see that if it moves as fast as it is moving now in China, they won't have a China. It'll choke on its own waste, and the people will rise. So how do you actually have the largest country in the world, population-wise, stand up and say, we don't have a future unless we do this? And now we have also the tensions between people. And this is extraordinary because the world exists on trade. One country sells to another. One country sells to another. Therefore, surely you'd want to foster understanding and cooperation, because then you could sell to each other. But yet, what is it that is stopping that? What is it that's making one country want to kill another? And now when you look into that, when we looked into that, you have to find that there are brainwash and the conditioning of races against each other. They arrive at a place called religion. Mm-hmm. And when you look at religion, you find that religion is totally against trade. So we're all hoping that soon enough, before too long, there will be an understanding. And that's all one can say about the 60s. But a young person wanting to speak now, sing Donovan songs, sing Beatles songs, sing Leonard Cohen songs, sing Bob Dylan songs, because all the message is in there still. And then one day you'll write your own song. And that song could be for your generation. I'm in touch with Jake Bugg. You know this new artist in Britain? They're comparing to how I was when I arrived. He's 18 and he's full of songs and energy. The new songwriter may just be around the corner.
Well, that's great, Donovan. Listen, thanks for taking the time to do this interview. We're going to finish on one of your songs, and this is Season of the Witch.
When I look out my window